Alright, so this article is from a website called Mobile Syrup. We need more people who actually play games to write about. A recent Elden Ring story on the New York Times has shown how mainstream outlets continue to misunderstand games. It's from a guy named Bradley Shankar. I agree with him for the most part. There's a few things I disagree with, but that's okay. Ain't no big deal. Here's a little screenshot. How do you do, fellow kids? These 6 words, as taken from an older man played by Steve Buscemi on 30 Rock, have become a popular meme whenever a person or company does something out of touch. It's also what I often think of when I see mainstream news outlets covering video games. This is extremely true. Most of these video game stories by the mainstream news outlets, they're not very good. And to explain, earlier this week, the New York Times lead consumer tech writer Brian X. Chen published a piece about Elden Ring, Japanese developers From Software's latest action role-playing game. In it, Chen attempts to explain the success of Elden Ring by drawing parallels to overcoming the struggles of the COVID-19 pandemic and the difficulties of FromSoft's game. On the one hand, he makes some salient points about the increased need for communion after the last 2 years. Not so much on that, but and the ways in which Elden Ring players can team up and defeat challenging in-game enemies. But he also rather bafflingly attributes the game's smashing success to the pandemic. It's difficult to imagine Elden Ring having this sort of cultural cachet in any other era. It's, and then he goes on to explain that this is stupid because, hell, you get the beloved studio, From Software behind Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. And then George R. R. Martin helped write the game's lore and so on and such forth. It's more accessible and everything. He talks about how Elden Ring bit out the Breath of the Wild sequel, a Zelda game, to be named the most anticipated game for 2 years in a row at the Game Awards. Which, okay, it's proof of that, but at the same time, it's not also, it doesn't make it this huge thing by itself, because it's the Game Awards. The Game Awards are okay, but, anyway. But basically, he talks about, they also hilariously use cell phone footage of Elden Ring instead of official publicly accessible assets from publisher Bandai Namco. This likely boils down to how many newsrooms and legal teams don't understand fair use. The legal teams understand fair use. That's what they're there for. They're the legal teams. But anyway, whatever. And it goes on to talk about some of the differences of the beauty of getting different people with different opinions in there. I'm not trying to gatekeep, the guy says. For example, we published a wonderful freelance piece from busy family man James Jackson last year about how he renewed his passion for games by playing on easy mode. Which, hey, I'm all for that. It's like whatever people like, whatever they want to play. Yeah, that's fine, But anyway, it goes on and talks about how the New York Times piece is far from the only offender, though. Around the same time that went up, CoinDesk, an outlet that focuses on Bitcoin and other digital currencies, published its own questionable take on Elden Ring. Essentially, Chief Insights columnist David Z. Morris, what's with these Z and X and all this shit, but anyway, whatever, tried to rather bafflingly draw comparisons to Elden Ring and cryptocurrencies. Yes, a video game and a digital currency. And he goes on to talk about, the guy talking about, that it's a small, dedicated fan base, which is actually true. The guy right here, Bradley here, disagrees. He said the notion that FromSoft has had a small, dedicated fan base that's been fighting off a horde of uncomprehending critics. Now, that part is untrue. The critics, they fucking jizz their pants all over these FromSoft games, but the FromSoft games don't sell nearly as well as you would think, considering. Now, Elden Ring is different, of course, but considering the way the critics go on about it. Like, the critics will act as if, these Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, whatever, are the greatest games ever made. And you're like, okay, hey, it must be super popular. Then you see that before Elden Ring had sold like 27 million copies of the first 3 Dark Souls. Which is really good, of course. Obviously, hell yeah. But at the same time, you're also talking, I think over half of those were from Dark Souls 3. Which, it shows that the games are getting more and more popular. But then you also add in, like his small dedicated fan base. It's like, they're dedicated, they're getting bigger. In Elden Ring, there's certain things that came together to make Elden Ring the smash it's been. One being is that there's not a lot of next gen, quote unquote, which is current gen game or consoles. Games for PS5, Xbox Series X and stuff that are truly next, gen, so to speak. that are truly experiences that we haven't seen before, which we kind of have, but I guess in a sense of like, games that are built for those systems that aren't like remakes or remasters, re-releases, whatever, that kind of stuff. Anyway, the guy goes on and talks about various other people, you know, from that Bloomberg technology columnist Ty Kim wrote about the sexist depictions of women in gaming. I had done a video about that, talking about Tomb Raider, Genshin Impact, and Bayonetta. And they also talk about, and of course, one of the things I completely disagree with is right here is when he said, notably, Bloomberg also employs one of the gaming industry's best journalists, Jason Schreier. Jason Schreier is an asshat. He's a fucking he's a weak-minded clown who sat on the Activision Blizzard assault accusations because he didn't want to hurt his fucking standing. He didn't want to hurt his career. So fuck him. He's a piece of shit. And quite frankly, well, I won't tell you. I won't go any further than that. But quite frankly, it's not a good thing. But he also, brings up Polygon editor-in-chief and co-founder Chris Plante, or Plant, or whatever, how the fuck you pronounce it, clown's name, because he's a fucking idiot too. Because Polygon's got a bunch of bullshit in it. And, he talks about, hey, little things the paper could do right now for little investment to dramatically improve its coverage. And I ain't reading that shit because the guy's a fucking idiot. Then you talk about, some mainstream outlets like the Washington Post also have their own really good gaming verticals. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I fucking doubt it because the Washington Post is a piece of shit. Website, newspaper, whatever you want to call it. We'll see though. Anyway. But then the article wraps up, so I'll go ahead and wrap this video up. It's already gone, almost 7 minutes, a lot longer than I was planning. But anyway, it's true. Hold on to your butts while I scroll up to the top. We need more people who actually play games to write about them. That is 100% true. There is no question about it. We need more people who actually play the games to write about them. But that's true for anything. You need more people who actually watch football to write about it. More people who actually watch basketball to write about it. More people who, do investing to write about it. So on and such forth. Video games aren't just for kids. I mean, hell, we've known that for fucking decades. Maybe the mainstream media will catch up. Because anytime they ever have it in a TV show, they always have where they're holding like a Genesis controller, but they're playing Mario and they're flinging the controller around and they're acting all spazzy and stuff, and all the beeps and the bops are from like the Atari, that kind of shit. We all know how that goes. But anyway, like I said, I'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.